Hey there, welcome back to the Support Ops Hangout. This is our weekly podcast that helps you deliver a better support experience for your customers. I'm your host, Chase Clemens. On today's show, we're going to be talking about onboarding new team members and everything that goes in with that. But before we do that, let's go ahead and introduce our panel. First up, our regular awesome gentleman that just happens to be on the show too for all of these episodes, Jeff Vincent from Wistia. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Chase. I'm good.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't know what your actual title at Wistia was anymore, so I just made something up.
No, let's go with awesome guy who always happens to be on this podcast. I'm totally in for that being my title.
Hey, I said gentleman rather than guy to give you a little flair,
right.
you know?
I appreciate that flair.
And then our special guest for this week, Ashley from over at Campaign Monitor. Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, hi, thank you. Glad to be here.
So for people, the one person under the rock that hasn't heard of Campaign Monitor, can you tell us what it is and what you do over there?
Yeah, so Campaign Monitor is basically simple and elegant email marketing for business. So we make really awesome software so that marketers can send emails out to their customers in really cool and dynamic ways. What I do there, I'm an employee success coordinator. So what that means to me is that I get to basically focus on making the newcomer experience as good as possible for our team and help rev up culture at Campaign Monitor so that we just are consistently supporting our employees in their endeavors.
And see, she's basically the perfect guest for this show because we're going to be talking about everything that she does, basically. Just like you onboard new customers to your product, you should probably be onboarding new hires too, especially since the first week or so is really critical when they're meeting your team and becoming part of it. So with this episode, we're going to help you craft a new hire onboarding plan that just really helps you set them up for success from the very first day. So, Ashley, we'll start with you. Why in the world is onboarding new hires so important? I mean, it's obviously important enough to Campaign Monitor to dedicate to it, so why?
Yeah, so I think that I'll give you two things. One is that, I think there's a lot of proven research and analysis that shows that onboarding is a really key development period in your employee's lifespan. So the first 6 months are really important, and about 60% of employees who leave a company do so within the first 6 months. So it's really killer time to make sure that you're showing the person as much love and care as possible. I think in my personal development and in my role and stuff like that, I think what really got me fired up about onboarding employees was the fact that we had a group of employees at one point who were awesome and kick-ass at what they did. They were helping customers in amazing ways and really going above and beyond their call of duty. Yet in our team meetings, they were consistently saying that they were afraid they were going to be losing their jobs, which was a super awful sign for us, but it really gave us the opportunity to go, okay, what are we missing at the beginning that's allowing people to feel this insecurity? And so I think for us, the importance of onboarding comes from this idea of making sure that we're showing care and companionship from the very beginning for our employees, showing them that we, not only have invested money in them, but we're willing to invest time and benefits and, all this other stuff to make them comfortable, but then also to provide them security, to provide them the ability to feel really comfortable in what they're doing.
So if I get hired on, next week or whatnot,
yeah.
What's it look like? What's my first, I don't know, before I show up for the job and then that first week or so look like?
Yeah, so we actually have worked pretty hard at this right now, just making sure that we've crafted something that starts at least 2 weeks prior to someone starting towards 2 weeks into their employment. So when you first get hired at Campaign Monitor, you're sent a email just welcoming you to the team and giving you a couple contacts at Campaign Monitor, one of them being myself, the other ones being your manager, and then we also have something called an accomplice. And your accomplice is someone kind of like the buddy system where they're just there to help answer questions that you may have that you don't want to, because I feel especially for me, I'm super nervous all the time, I'm nervous right now, and the idea of having to consistently ask my manager questions was awful. So having someone whose job it was really just to help me out really meant that I had someone there for me. So The email gives the opportunity to introduce that person to you, make sure you have their contact information, and we also ask their t-shirt size so that on their very first day we have a t-shirt there and ready for them. Campaign Monitor also owns a survey company called Get Feedback, and so we use Get Feedback to get that survey out to them and get that information. So it's really kind of coy, fun way to use both the products in collecting employee information. So yeah, and then the next email that goes out to them is really just an opportunity, and I'm sorry, I'm talking so much.
I mean, it's okay. It's just me and Jeff on this one. So.
The next one just really gives them all the details, like the nitpicky things that worry you at night before your first day on the job. So, you know, things like making sure they know that we don't have a dress code, but that doesn't mean show up in your favorite meat dress. You know, things like making sure that they know what time people usually come to the office, that we provide, you know, some meals for them, making sure they know what time their manager arrives, things like that, just to make sure that, you know, all those little things that you may not ask but that haunt you the night before your job are answered. And that way when you come in, you already feel like a sense of preparation. And right now is a really exciting time at Campaign Monitor because we're actually going to take those a step further now and really kind of envelop some of our employee handbook and our well-being packages and stuff like that into those first few emails so they really get an idea of the culture and feel a bit more of a head start on their first day.
Awesome. So Campaign Monitor's, like we talked about it before the show and I've already forgot. It's like 200 something, 250?
Yeah, we have anywhere, I think, I'm not sure on like the exact number of employees, but it's just around a couple hundred, I think. But we're growing pretty rapidly.
Yeah, so at that scale, I can imagine having, I mean, just for me, I mean, having like a contact name and email, that kind of thing, plus along with like, here's what's going to happen on your first day. That would go a long way to kind of easing that new hire anxiety. Jeff, when it comes to a smaller team than that with Wistia, is it the same kind of first couple of weeks leading up to when they start?
Well, I don't know that I can speak to that as well as Ashley did because I don't actually know what may have changed since I went through it a long time ago. But I know
it was
that the goals are still
so don't worry about it. It's the same thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, let's start off the show by saying every onboarding is flawed in some way. You just don't know how. And in the early days, it's probably super flawed, and then it gets better, especially if you have someone to focus on it. Because, like Ashley said, I think it's really important. The goals are still the same, right? You want people to come in and feel really confident about their work because all of us, right, the people who are listening, all work in something that I would consider a creative industry, right? The work that they do is creative, and it's moving fast, and they're coming up with ideas to solve problems. And when you're in that kind of work environment, if you're not confident, you're not going to do your best work, right? Your default mode is going to be, I'm just going to wait for somebody to tell me this is okay, because I don't want to get fired, right? And I don't actually know what I'm supposed to be doing. And that confident employees jump in and they say, I feel like I have the context. I feel like people have my back. I feel like I know what I'm supposed to be doing and what direction we're going in. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this. That's the difference between a confident and a not confident employee. So can't say exactly what we do, but I do know that there is a communication process that's set up from like offer acceptance date all the way to your first day. Mm-hmm. And the stuff that's, I guess, more internal facing, so like all the rest of the team facing, is you'd send an introduction email before your first day. Here's me, I'm about to join, here's some things about me that you might find weird, that kind of thing. And then on people's first day, we have team lunch, so they can get to know us and we can get to know them. And the latest iteration on that has been I think what we're calling WIS trivia, which is you submit something weird about yourself, and then we do trivia and guess which person has that weird attribute about themselves.
That's awesome.
One of my favorite ones from today was this person made $500 as a James Dean impersonator. Yeah, and then you have to guess who it is, and you go around the room and try to guess who the person is. Yeah, so that's how that's sort of the like total team-facing aspect of onboarding. But I'm sure for the new employee, there's like all kinds of mechanics that happen behind the scenes.
You were the James Dean impersonator, right?
Oh, of course. Yeah, I'm still making that money. Yeah. How do you think I afford that mirror in the back?
That's what I figured. I just wanted to be sure on that one. Yeah, and with Basecamp, the onboarding process, I think, like Jeff mentioned, it drastically changed from when I was hired, 4 or 5 years ago, up into like how we're getting ready to hire some new support folks, and the process that they go through, like I said, it's going to be drastically different than what I went through. I think a big thing, and we're going to get into the more nitty-gritty on some of this stuff. I think the big thing for us was being able to kind of set up a template onboarding process to make sure nothing is missed, right? We go through and kind of outline, here's what you're going to do on week 1, here's what you're going to do on week 2, week 3, week 4. And it's one of those where by going through, we can make sure that you don't get to week 4 and then realize, oh yeah, we kind of forgot to like set up your login to like our billing system that you need to like answer questions or something like that. So Ashley, when it comes to Campaign Monitor, is there a set kind of template like that happens for every employee? I mean, you talk about the email, so I'm guessing they're probably sent with Campaign Monitor, like automated, that kind of thing. But are there other processes in place set up like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, like you mentioned, we try to use our tools as much as possible just because we think it's a really great way to incorporate what we do at Campaign Monitor and who we are. And I'm sure for Basecamp it's really similar. Like you have tasks and stuff like that set up, so it's a really great way of getting to know the product. But I think that for us it's been really, really, really key to make sure we do have some sort of checklist lined up. And we've done this a few ways. One is like just tech setup checklist your first day, making sure you have like all the little key pieces that get missed along the way. I think for us, like, making sure you have all your passwords is like a huge thing. You want to make sure someone, like you said, is like being able to log in on their 5th day to something. And so even if that means on their first day, like they may not understand why you're giving them this information, at least then they have it when it comes up. And I think that's been really important. Another thing we did that's kind of coming into function right now is we decided as a group, as a like collective at Campaign Monitor, what we wanted to embody in the first week of someone's life at Campaign Monitor. And we kind of made courses out of that experience, and we kind of made like classes on that, so that when you come into Campaign Monitor, you can go to these classes and you can speak with employees at that time who will tell you more about those specific areas of the business. And I think for us that was like a super huge part of that kind of task list, was like a lot of it for us was like, okay, we're all working on a lot of different tools, we're all working on a lot of different projects, but what are the like core things that like bring us all together as employees? And that was huge for us, like making sure that those things, those cultural kind of things that explained who we are as a company, what our product does, stuff like that, got covered in the first couple of weeks.
Yeah, so Jeff, obviously Campaign Monitor thinks this is important enough to have a person dedicated to it. When we're talking smaller companies, Basecamp, Wistia size, how important is it to have one person kind of in charge of this onboarding stuff, or does it just get passed? Like, is it okay just to pass it around to like whoever's available?
I think this feels like one of those ones that is like a co-founder or CEO responsibility until you have somebody else who maybe reports to them that it's their responsibility. Because, like I think Ashley was saying at the top, this is how the culture and the direction of the company gets shared. Right? This is the time when someone new shows up, they're complete blank slate, and they're saying, I want to learn how I can be the best, Basecamp, Campaign Monitor, Wistia employee that I can be. Tell me. And if you don't make that explicit, then I feel like people will make it up for themselves, right? Like it's always going to define itself. It's just whether you make it explicit or whether the people figure it out themselves. And when people figure it out themselves, I think you're going to see that, that drift that happens, where it's kind of like, well, now we're kind of here to do a job. That's why we're here, as opposed to the mission that you as the co-founder think you've made so clear. But if you don't in those early experiences, then you do see that drift away. So I think that this is something that someone has to be the backstop for. It can't be something that's just like, well, we'll figure it out. Whether you need as a smaller team to have a single person attached to it or not, I'm not sure. I think I don't want to draw an analogy because this is a people thing, and I don't think you can draw an easy analogy here. But at some size, your new hire and existing employee churn happens at such a pace that it makes sense to have a person who is organizing new hires and also collecting exit feedback as sort of like the hub for all of that. And there's just a lot of work to be done if you want to hire, right now, if we want to hire one person, that's doable, and that's like the piece that we want to grow at. But if you want to hire 10 people a month, or do you want to onboard 10 new people on the same day, that's not something that can just be like priority number 4 on someone's list. That's got to be a number 1. So I like the idea of at some point identifying a single person who owns it. I don't know what that point is though.
I agree. I think there was one of the questions you had put on my list of things to answer, and one of them was who should be in charge of this, and my original thought that came into my head was someone who really cares and wants to do it, because these are really kind of fragile people in your employment structure. These are people who don't know you yet, who don't know what they want or what they're going to learn and stuff. And so to have someone who really just can come in, and whether that be someone, it doesn't necessarily have to be a team lead or anything like that, but it's if someone wants to come in and really help someone out and help them get started, that's the best person to have running the program.
Yeah, and I think with our Basecamp team, it usually tends to be team leads. So your support team lead kind of handles the onboarding and hiring for the support team, and then the ops team lead kind of handles it for them. Yeah, like Jess said, I think there's got to be some. We know that there's some point in size where you need somebody dedicated to people coming in and people leaving the company. Even. See, I wish Chase Livingston was on the show, but because I guarantee you Automatic has a person like that at the rate that they're hiring and everything else. So there is some magic number in there. What that number is, I think, like we always say on the show, it's just your mileage is going to vary. It's different for every company. So I guess all that to say, don't feel like, if you're a new manager, especially at a smaller company, don't feel like you have to go out and hire somebody just to hire people and onboard people. That can be kind of your, like Jeff mentioned, maybe 3rd or 4th priority on the list of things that you've got to get done.
Jeff, I think that's a great point. No, I think it's a great point. And I guess, I'm trying to think of how I can put a finer point on what I was trying to get at, which is someone, you don't necessarily have to hire somebody, but someone has to do it. You have to take ownership over that thing, over that onboarding experience, even if it isn't this person's only role is a really great onboarding and new employee experience. It's the company, we have a new hire coming in, and this person is their onboarding lead. I think in terms of the general vision of it, what are the big parts that go into it, sort of the strategic person, that should go up as high as the CEO, in my opinion. But in terms of execution, right, so taking we actually use a Basecamp project to make sure that it's fairly consistent. And I think the actual execution of that should definitely go to a team lead. But I think I would argue that having team leads own their own onboarding without having it be somewhat centralized could lead to some like unanticipated or like unplanned for siloing of the culture,
I
where
agree.
you're talking about different teams are talking about what they value in different ways as opposed to starting with company values. And
Mhm.
it's funny that I offer that commentary knowing that we probably have some of that at Wistia for sure, but you want to root that out, I think.
Yeah, one of the cool ways that you can kind of root that out, like Jeff was talking about. Ashley mentioned earlier having a, I think you called it an accomplice,
Yeah.
or yeah. We tend to think of that person, that buddy, being somebody that's on the team that you're on. You know, your support hire, your buddy is a support person. But a lot of times you can kind of cut across teams. So if you just hire, if you just hired a new iOS developer, for instance, give them a support buddy so they can kind of
Mhm.
get some of that cross-cultural influence there. If you just hired somebody for ops, pair them up with like an Android developer or designer or something like that. And that's going to help break down those silos and make sure that stuff like that isn't just oh, the support team over here is really bubbly and is really great at this one culture value thing that we have, but the ops team over here is completely different in that regard. So and I would add to that, there are some things that are going to cut across all of your teams, right? Setting up like, I don't know, like your W-2 stuff and your tax kind of stuff. That's stuff that doesn't have to be team specific, so you can have somebody from another team help them through stuff like that, just to kind of reinforce that cross-team thing. I don't know. I feel like I'm using too many buzzwords here. I'm trying not to.
You're making a lot of sense. You're going the gold. It's great.
Yeah, and it's one of those. Again, it's okay not to, for if you're a new manager, especially at a smaller company, a newer company, a startup, that kind of thing, it's okay not to have all of this figured out. It's
Mhm.
okay that you don't walk in with a new hire and have like this big, massive like checklist that they're going to go through or some big process that they're going to go through or anything like that. I mean, it's more than enough just to do the simple things right. So if you have an actual office space that y'all go to, then make sure you're there before they get there, because otherwise the new hire is standing at the door without a key to get in, which is really, really awkward. So I mean, you can do small things like that are going to have a big impact in this onboarding process.
Yeah, preparedness is huge. Like, I think people really don't put enough weight on the fact that just being prepared for someone to show up is like half the battle. So like being there to open the door for them, or being there to like greet them when they get off the elevator, or whatever your building situation is like the hugest step. Or for us, it was even just having like a simple gift on their desk, like a box of chocolates, or even like a notepad and a pen, just saying like, we know you're coming. Here's something showing you that like we're ready for you. I think those little things are super huge.
So as far as the onboarding goes, Basecamp is a remote team. Campaign Monitor now has two different headquarters in place, and the Wistia folks are over in Boston. Jeff, to how important is it for a new hire to be in the office on day one for all their onboarding kind of stuff? Like if you're I don't want you to make a case against remote working here, but like, what's the advantage of the person being in the office here rather than trying to onboard them remotely?
I'll make a case against remote working, at least in the onboarding sense. Um, uh, Onboard, like a new employee hire represents a pretty major change for the company. I don't know at what point that stops, but I know we're nowhere near that. It's great that we hire someone and we know and expect that they will have an impact on the work that we do and the culture that we have. And if that's the case, with that being the case, then it makes they have to be in the office in order to get a sense of the environment that they're working in, so that they can be their biggest impact on both like the work and the culture-wise self, right? They just need that sense of I don't know you that well. I'm gonna say something or suggest something, and I need to get a sense of your body language so I know that it's a good idea, bad idea. Is this the right place for me to be sharing that kind of feedback? all of that kind of stuff. I think from the company's perspective, the amount of time, I mean, maybe some other companies are better at this, but the amount of time that we spend hiring is pretty great for a few individuals in the company and almost non-existent for the vast majority of the individuals in the company. We're only 60-something people or 60 people. So that means that there's a new hire starting, and there's probably 1 or 2 people at the company that have spent more than 6 hours with that person, and then there's 98% of the company that has spent 0 time with them. So having them there means that the rest of the team can get to know who that person is, as opposed to, oh, by the way, there's a new person joining. They're only in the team-specific Slack room or something like that, right? You only get like a hi in the team Slack room. Like that to me falls way short of getting to know the person. But that might just be my experience.
Yeah, actually, how important is it for that face-to-face to happen in the first week?
Oh, man, that's a tough one because it's cool because we have a few different offices and we have people kind of located around the world. And when people come on board at Campaign Monitor, we do make an effort to get them around employees, whether it's, we don't necessarily have a Portland office, for instance, but we do have quite a presence in Portland. We have about, I'm going to get this wrong, sorry, Portlanders, about 5 to 6 people in Portland right now. And so even just being able to have like a team meetup there, if someone gets hired in Portland, that we can involve them in is really, I think, really key. And same goes for our employees in London. Anytime we have someone out there and we can get all our employees together, it's a really awesome opportunity for everyone to kind of get to know each other. And I think it fuels that sense of connection. I think a lot of people in their jobs are insecure when they don't know anyone because they don't know what communication looks like to people. They don't know what, I think especially, like, you guys probably know this as support people, and I especially know it from my past life as a support person, but trying to convey everything in writing is so hard, like so hard, and like you can lose someone with one word or one bit of sarcasm they don't catch, or things like that. And so just the moments together to be able to say, this is how I communicate, this is how I interact, this is how I give feedback, I think are just super important culturally. And you really get a sense of, like, are people secure here? Are my fellow coworkers going to stay here a long time? Will I get to make connections? That kind of thing, just from being around people. And so, like, where I don't think, like, perhaps a person who gets hired in Portland doesn't need to come to the San Francisco office because they can meet other Portlanders, or perhaps the same goes with our UK employees, or maybe even someone in Melbourne. I do think it's important that they at some point get to meet their fellow employees and make that sense of connection, just because it offers a level of job security I don't think you get if you're doing things over the internet.
Yeah, absolutely agree on that. And with Basecamp, it's the same thing. Look, we're known for remote working. I've worked remotely for 5 years now, but the first 2 weeks of the job were spent in the Chicago office, face-to-face with other people from the support team and the other folks there in Chicago. Now, since then, we've made some hires, and we still do the 2 to 3 weeks face-to-face, but those have happened now in Austin and in Portland. So the locations have varied a bit, but it's always been where we either have 2 or 3 people in that city, or we all just decide to fly into a city, So yeah, it's one of those, I think really, especially for the first 2 weeks, you're learning so much for the job, like learning what you're supposed to be doing and how to do it, but you're also learning people, you're learning the rest of your team, so minimizing the all the myriad of different things that can go wrong, it's in your best interest. Like Jeff said, you spent a lot of money to get this person to this point. Don't skip out and be like, oh no, we didn't want to fly you to Chicago or New York or wherever and put you up in a hotel, so we're just going to train remotely. That's just, yeah. All right, last thing, just kind of wrap things up. Jeff, how long should this onboarding process last? Is there a point where you can kind of look back and go, yeah, we're good. You're a full-on Wistian, and yeah.
I don't think so. I don't think I'm there yet.
Oh wait, so you don't like
So
bleed, Wisty, and blue or whatever?
of course I do. Um, we're trying, and I mean, I think this is happening across teams, but and a bit organically, so it's not happening all at once. But we're trying to implement 90-day feedback, and with that being like a good anchor, I think 3 months. It depends on the role, but I think 3 to 6 months is really good for saying you're now a spun up Wistian, right? I think that in terms of getting to know everybody, building relationships, feeling super confident, it all depends on the person. Some people come in and on day one they're like, "Hey, here's a bunch of things I think we need to do better," and other people, it can take them a year, and then all of a sudden they take off like a rocket with that kind of stuff. Um, but I think setting as a goal that when you go into that 90-day feedback room, you're not doing knee-jerk evaluation of this person is a real nervous, this is how this person reacts when they're really nervous, and therefore on day one I'm going to overreact to what I'm seeing, which we've had, right, which we've experienced. But then instead you're looking at, I feel like I know you a bit as a person. I know we've figured out all the little bugs related to what your role is and how it meshes with other existing responsibilities on the team. We've got all that kind of stuff figured out, and we're ready to give you feedback about how you can be a better base campion, better campaign monitorian, better Wistian. That feels like a really solid anchor to me. But I feel like it's a continuum that you're always on a little bit.
Is it really monitorian? Like campaign
Moniteers.
Moniteers. See, names like this are so hard. Like some people have it easy, like automaticians, but have we figured out what like buffer is yet?
But me, by the way, no one. I have no sign-offs to call them that. I just do.
So with campaign monitor, like how long is that process? Like at what point do you feel like the people that you've kind of have worked with up to this point, what time do you just like let them go?
Yeah, I think Jeff gave a really succinct answer for that. Like some people it's going to be like a week, others it's going to take a couple months, like, or a year, like you said. Like it's really hard. I think when I think about it, it's like onboarding to me, and maybe this is because I'm biased because it's a lot of what I do, but onboarding to me like never ends, right? Like you always want to consistently be at a point, and this is both for me personally and how I see my fellow employees. Like I feel like we all should be at a point where we want to continue to learn and grow and think and get pushed to that next level. And so I think for me, like if I think of onboarding in that perspective, it never ends. Like it's something that's like I'm always going to shoot for what's next, But like as far as formal onboarding is concerned, because that's probably what we're talking about, I would probably say like maybe have like really structured training for like 1 to 2 weeks, and then just slowly like make it something where it's like then just weekly feedback or monthly feedback, something like that just kind of is like a wave slowly rolling, like at first it's really intense, but then it kind of ebbs off. So that's kind of the way I look at training.
Yeah, and just to round it out from the Basecamp side, we look at roughly the first 90 days, like Jeff mentioned, of official quote-unquote onboarding and things like that. So that's a good kind of marker to shoot for. After that, I mean, yeah, some people are ready in a couple of weeks. Some people it takes a year or whatnot. So just again, your mileage may vary. It's gonna be different. It's okay. It's okay for there not to be hard and fast rules for all this stuff. But I think at the end of the day, if you take nothing else from this episode, like Ashley said earlier, just be prepared. Don't let your new hire show up and be like, "Oh, you're starting today? That's okay," because then you're just behind the 8 ball going forward. So that said, that's our take on this one. Let us know what you think. Head over to supportops.co, click that red message beacon in the lower right corner, or tweet at us. Our handle is @supportops there. That brings us to my favorite part of each and every week. It's this week's shoutouts. These are things that are making us happy. So happy we want to let you know about them. And I would say if you haven't, I keep saying, like, if you don't watch the YouTube video, sometimes you want to on these, because Jeff's, like, finger click right there was just epic. It was, like, the most masterful and I don't know, what's the word, dramatic pressing of a button that I've seen in a while. You would think that there was like a big red button for that noise.
Endorse me on LinkedIn for button pushing.
You push my buttons all the time. Come on. Oh, physical, okay, physical button pushing. So, Jeff, what's your first shout out?
So my shout out is, did you say my first one? Okay, anyway,
well, I just kind of like assume since Carolyn and then Chase are both out. Yeah.
I know, right? My first and only shout out for this week is the conference formerly known as Chase Camp Base Camp, now known as SupConf, which I can't even tell you, for years we were saying it would be awesome for support people to have another conference to go to. How exciting would it be to get everybody together and just talk about what we're working on, what's useful for us, what challenges are we facing, get to know other people. How cool is that? And a few years ago, I met Scott Tran, and instantly I knew he was going to be the one to guide us into this new world of conferences. And it sounds like he's done that. Now, I know absolutely nothing about the conference besides that. But my plan right now is to show up at Chase's door, and he could probably give you some more of the backstory, but show up at Chase's door and just expect a conference to form around me. So if you're in for that, find me on Twitter. We'll come up with a plan.
I don't know if I'm prepared for that. So, yeah. You might show up and I'm going to be like, okay, you're here. Yeah, I learned nothing from this episode about onboarding and being prepared. So,
yeah, right. That's right. Well, let me give you a little bit more detail. So, SupConf of this year is in May. It's the 23rd and the 24th, and it's in San Francisco at the Automatic offices. I'm sure Chase would want me to say that. So you can get tickets online. Just search for SupConf.
Yeah, it should go. I think tickets go live tomorrow, February 2nd. So we record this on Monday. So by the time you hear this, then it'll be the 2nd. So you can go get tickets. We'll have the link in the show notes. Ashley, what's your shout out?
Yeah, I figured that since we were on the onboarding wagon and continued feedback wagon, I would shout out to my friends at an app called Peer. And Peer is basically an application you can get on your phone, and if your company is signed up, it's a really easy way of giving 140-character feedback to your teammates. So, for instance, today I got prompted to give monthly feedback to your friend Matthew Patterson, and so I got to give him lots of thumbs up because he does awesome work, as you guys know. But beyond that, you can also just say, like, hey, I noticed you did good work here, or I noticed you did, I think that maybe we could improve these areas. And it's just like a really quick and easy way to give someone feedback. And I know our support team and my other support teams I've been involved in, like, that's huge for us. Like, we love to give feedback, and we love to be able to, like, tell each other what we love about each other and stuff. We're a very empathetic team. So to have a platform to do that is pretty awesome. So shout out to my friends at Peer App.
Setting the bar high with like one that actually correlates the show topic. I don't think we've ever done that. Mine is a fun. Okay, so I can tie this back. So Campaign Monitor sends out emails, and the app I'm going to talk about sends out emails. Yeah, Highbrow. I think they use a competitor of yours. That's okay. Highbrow's really cool. I've been through 2 courses so far. Basically, it's this email subscription kind of deal where you get basically a course via email. So like the last one I went through was 10 of the. I should know this because I just finished it this morning. 10 of the trials, legal trials that have had the most impact on the modern world. So it walked through one a day, which is really cool. And they've got courses on all sorts of stuff, from history stuff, which I've been working my way through, to business, startups, psychology, science, health, all that fun stuff. It was really cool just to have like one email a day about one thing a day. And then there's an end date on that. There's only 10, rather than just like it going on forever. So check it out. Go Highbrow. Yeah, gohighbrow.com. We'll have that and all the other links and everything else in the show notes. We'll have that up shortly. Big thanks again to Ashley. You've been great. You said you were nervous earlier, but we couldn't tell. You did great.
Thank you. I enjoyed being on. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and make sure you follow her on Twitter and all that. We'll have that, again, in the show notes because that's where stuff like that belongs. If you're feeling generous, do us a favor. Tell a friend about the show. Send out a tweet about the show. Just, whatever you want to do about the show. Just tell somebody. Thanks again for listening, and until we see you again next week, have an awesome week.